This is the Closure House, where we discuss boundaries, estrangement, no contact, and the difficult thing about relationships many people avoid. I'm Jessica, I'm your host, and today we're talking about grief. Because anytime you lose something significant, grief is going to be associated. And I think there is this misunderstanding about grieving people who are still alive. And I want to talk about how to get through that. So when you leave your family behind, people from the outside are like, you're sad that you left your family behind, but your family's still there. So just go talk to them. Like, go make it work. And the issue is that if you could have made it work, I don't think you would have left. There is a reason why you left your family behind, but other people don't understand it. So it creates what we call disenfranchised grief. The part that people from the outside don't understand is that you're still grieving when you're in the relationship too. It's not just grieving the fact that they're gone. It's grieving the fact that they're not who you need them to be. That when you need them to show up, they don't. Or when you need support, they don't give it. You're already grieving. So having to leave the relationship is just a different dynamic of grief, but the same feeling at the same level. But it does add another component, and that's guilt. So when you walk away from your family, there's a lot of guilt because when you talk to someone, let's say you run into somebody and they're like, "How's your mom?" And you're like, "I don't really talk to her." And they're like, "Oh, but that's your mom. You have to talk to your mom." It gets really difficult, right? Because there's guilt. You almost have to remind yourself of why you left because other people will kind of talk you out of it. That's why I think there's like this tug of war on the internet where people are like, that's your family and you have to stand beside them and it doesn't matter what they do. And then on the other side, there is like this healthy side of the internet where they're like, don't deal with people who mistreat you in any space because you deserve better. It gets really difficult to figure out whether you're doing the right thing or not. So grief is going to show up regardless. But I think what isn't understood is that you're grieving all the while. Even if you stay in the family dynamic, you're still grieving who they should have been, what you needed, who they are, what they've done. There's so much grief still. So people usually leave so they don't have to endure both the grief and the abuse. You'll have to get to a point where you just don't need the validation from other people because they won't understand why you left. People will always tell you, like, if I was you, I would do this. That is not what they would do if they were you. That's what they would do if they were still them in your situation. They don't know you and they can't tell you what they would do if they were you because they don't know. You have to decide what you will do going forward with your family and where they will fit. And I've seen people leave their families because they're like, I don't get what I need when I'm with them. I feel bad about myself. When you're in a relationship, it has to be mutual. Communication, trying, giving, caring, like it has to be mutual. When one person is doing all the heavy lifting of trying to communicate, expressing what they need, what they feel, what they don't want to feel, and nothing's happening because of it, it makes it easier to leave the relationship because it's so much work. It's exhausting. When I'm sitting with people in therapy, sometimes they are preparing for a holiday 3 or 4 months in advance because of how their family's going to make them feel, what they have to wear, like what they're going to bring, what they're going to talk about, what they're going to be put down about, and it just gets old. Nobody wants to be ridiculed or the brunt of anybody's joke all the time. So when I talk to people in therapy and they're thinking about leaving or going no contact, the underlying issues are usually the same. It's people who don't want to be mistreated in a family of other people who keep the mistreatment going. And so the safest way for them to not be mistreated is just leave because they're like, I don't want to deal with this. So they don't. But there is a thing that happens with grief. And grief is heavy, guys. Grief is hard to deal with. So if you're in a position where you're like, I didn't even want to leave my family, but this is the best decision I have to make because nothing's changing. And now you're experiencing grief. First, you have to become who you want to be. Whoever it is that you want to be, how you want to be living your life, you have to become that. And there can't be any question about it. It's not about what other people think about you, what they'll accept or not, just outside of everyone, who are you and what do you want to be? And from there, that will usually help you to figure out what choice you can make next. I have seen people go no contact and then revisit their family once they became who they were because they knew that they couldn't be impacted by people's opinions. They wouldn't be impacted by what they said or did because they knew who they were. So even if you never go back to your family Becoming who you are is one of the strongest ways for you to deal with the grief. Another thing that you can do is grieve who you needed them to be. We have to at some point get to acceptance, regardless of what people are saying on the outside, of who the people in your life actually are. There are times where people have a major thing happen and they go talk to their mom. That's the person they call, or their dad. If that's not your situation, then I just want you to accept that you can't talk to them about serious things. They may not give you the support you want. So we want to accept that, accept people for what they're capable of. And then we want to move on to finding people who fill those voids. You can find a friend or a chosen family member who will be there for you in a time where you really need a mother's advice or a grandmother's advice or a dad. Like, you'll find those things in someone else. But we have to be realistic when somebody won't be what you need. And then the last thing about grief is you got to go through it. There is no way out of grief without going through it. So if you decide you won't, it'll just be looming there in the background until you do. There's going to be times where you're going to miss them. There's going to be times where you're going to miss who they should have been to you. When grief shows up, we have to deal with it. You know, when you're no contact, there just isn't a lot of support. People will have a lot of judgments about what you're doing with your life, but most of them, if they were actually in your shoes, would not make the decisions they're telling you to make. I want you to stand on whatever decisions you make. But in the meantime, make sure you're talking to a therapist or a counselor or somebody who can help you through the grief and help you gain perspective. That way you'll know what to do going forward as well. This is the Closure House, where we don't shrink to stay connected. Thanks for listening.